but they say age-appropriate degeneration. I'm like, what does that mean? You know, we're at a certain age, we're supposed to have a certain amount of decay and decrepitness to our bodies. If you buy into it, you will. If you take action, you have choices. And that's what I want to teach my patients.
Welcome to the 100 Year Lifestyle Podcast, dedicated to you and your loved ones living at 100% for 100 years and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Plasker. Welcome, everybody, to the 100 Year Lifestyle, where we are transforming health and longevity worldwide so that you and your loved ones can truly live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And hey, we're going to talk about a success story today. We're going to talk about somebody that has changed their life. They did it with a mindset. I love the story. Good friend of mine, too. I love that we have a relationship for a long time. Fellow colleague, Dr. David Adler from Roswell, Georgia, one of our 100-year lifestyle chiropractors there. Man, I'm so proud of you. You are inspiring, and you're inspiring to me. You're going to be inspiring to everybody.
Eric, thank you. First of all, thanks so much. And yes, our friendship goes way back, 40-something years, and we have a very good, beautiful common denominator along the line, Dr. Ernie Landi. I recall being in his office doing X-rays and examining people and saying, "Wow, this is such a fascinating way of life and understanding it." But yeah, the journey's been phenomenal, and you know, people make changes when they're faced with significant forks in the road, and that's really where I was at, and I had to make a decision, and not just a decision for my own health, but a decision in becoming less hypocritical to a certain degree. And really putting some meat behind my taking care of my patients with not just a skill set, but follow the leader, look at my example. And that's kind of the mindset I went with. But obviously the first and foremost was my health in general.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're going to talk about your journey. This is your goal date day,
Yeah,
right? Today you officially hit your goal weight. You eliminated, not lost, because you're not going to find it again, right? You eliminated how many pounds?
63.7.
63.7 pounds. Yeah. And you said something that I want to start with, because I think it's very profound. You said you reached a turning point. It was a critical point where you needed to make a decision. You needed to make a choice. We call it crisis motivation versus quality of life motivation. People get to that point where they realize they have to decide. And you made that decision. What was the trigger?
Had an examination with a good friend of mine who's a LASIK surgeon in town, and he did one, and he said, "Listen, David, a few years ago we did an exam, and you had some starting of cataracts, but the way mine was starting was in the back of the lens, not the middle where it usually starts." And he says it's typically related to blood sugar, to which he said, "When's the last time you had some blood tests done?" I'm like, you know, it's been a while, because I don't generally run to the medical doctor for anything. Chiropractic is my lifestyle, it's my go-to, and it's always worked beautifully. But I decided, I think it's a pretty good time for me to get an exam. But let's just find out if there's anything I need to look at. And there was a lot to look at. I was big. And so I did the blood tests, and I had coronavirus in November, and I was not feeling good for a while and got through it. But coming back to work, it was stressful. And I noticed my pulse was high, my blood pressure was high. And I was like, this is not okay. I can't lead if I'm going to be a person who's not healthy. So I had my blood test done, and it came back that my A1C was very high, just borderline, but still in that diagnostic area of diabetes. And my fasting blood sugar was 125. What am I going to do? What avenue am I going to go? My father was a diabetic hypertensive. I take care of patients who are diabetic hypertensive. I take care of the long-term effect of the neuropathies. And the truth is, a lot of the diseases that we see that are just thrown medication at are things that are lifestyle. And what do we teach in our 100-year lifestyle? It's in the name. So the reality is like, I got to make a change. And I had a friend online who was talking about this whole program that kind of really was a weight loss, but it rang some tones with me because it was more changing a lifestyle, changing and adopting something that. That's why I kind of clung onto it. And I just got started, and this is my 15th week on the program. And I will tell you, I don't know any situation where I've never not even cheated a little bit on a diet, had a little bit here, a little bit there. As you know, my wife owns a baking company, so it's more of a challenge at times.
Which explains the extra 60 pounds on some level.
Yeah, a little bit. But it got to the point where I just turned 55 in April. I was coming up on 55 before I started. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is just insane. It's funny enough because when I look back at pictures in my little Google, scrolling through all the hundreds of pictures throughout the years, even times when I thought I was smaller, not even close. And now that I'm in a 36 pant, my resting heart rate is 58. My blood pressure is 116/74, 170, whatever it is low. The point is, I'm not worried about the numbers as much as how my body is now regulating the way it's supposed to. So the innate process, as we always talk about, of health and healing, the regulation of the blood sugar, the regulation of the pulse rate, the regulation, it's all controlled by our nervous system. So when I'm carrying 64 more pounds or so on me, wasn't good for the structure, wasn't good for the alignment, and the blood sugar fluctuations is not good for the brain or the muscles. So we know all this, but now it's time to put it all together. And that was I don't want to say a fork in the road. I really believe for me, it was an axe. And if I kept on going straight, it would have been a bad situation. And going the other way would have been bad. I only had one choice in my mind.
Well, I mean, no, you really didn't have one choice. You could have kept going in the direction that you did. There's a lot of people that do, and they just take medication after medication after medication. And listen, I'm telling you, if you're listening to this and you need some motivation to change, you have to understand that covering up your problems that are a result of your lifestyle choices with drugs, with medicine, is a disaster waiting to happen. The side effect after side effect, and you've seen this with your patients. How many times you see people come into your practice, Dave, where you have, they list 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 medications. You are headed for a disaster if you don't just wake up and change your life. And, you said you have diabetes that ran in your family, but what we understand, and David, you know this, Dr. David, you know this, that these are not genetic diseases. They may be labeled it like, hey, you have diabetes, it runs in your family, you have heart disease, it runs in your family, but these are not genetic diseases. We know now that the science of genetics has led us astray. We blame things on genes that are not genes' fault. And you're a walking example of that. And we have this in common, not just hairstyle, but I also eliminated 60 pounds back in 2003 and 2004 when I changed my life and haven't looked back because that weight was never mine. And talk about, from a perspective of drawing the line in the sand, if somebody wants to get the edge. You said you haven't cheated, you haven't had the desire to cheat, you literally changed your life. Talk about the mindset of getting the edge.
When I first started working on the program, I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough the first week to drop almost 10 pounds. Why? Because a lot of that was just water weight and my body, how I was treating my body, and my body reacted. That's the beauty of it. It's like, when we cut ourselves, we don't sit there and pray and pray and pray that it's going to heal. We go on, it heals, the skin heals, it does what it's supposed to. The tissues do what they do, and all of a sudden we're good. But the reality is that's really how the body works all the time, so long as we know we remove interference. My interference was me being unregulated with my diet, not watching what I'm eating. I use the analogy with people, if you had a jet plane, you wouldn't put leaded fuel in there. There's a chance you might take off, but you're probably not going to do a successful flight. So if I'm not doing everything the way I'm supposed to feed this jet plane, this amazing machine, that's what's been so eye-opening, is that wow, I have the power to make the choice, and the body has the wisdom to go along and do what it needs to do to regulate and refix it. I got an email from the doctor on the follow-up blood exam, and he had all the facts, and he said, your A1C is normal, your fasting blood sugar was perfect. You did it. Great job. And I said to myself, what did I do? I just took away a problem my body did. And that is the case in every single patient we see in our office. Yes, we have a skill set of knowing how to do what we do, but we have been trained to understand that what we do only allows the body to do what it's designed to do.
What an amazing statement you just made. I think it's fantastic. We have a statement in the 100-Year Lifestyle. I know it's hanging in your office on that one of those posters there. It says that your innate intelligence will organize around the thoughts that you think, the choices you make, and the lifestyle that you live. And when it comes to weight, as an example, and your blood chemistry as an example, you make the changes in your life in a negative way and you start packing on the pounds, you overeat, your body says, okay, you're looking to become a grizzly bear. I get it. You're going to be hibernating. And so we're going to pack on the pounds and we're going to keep packing it on until winter is over. And when you come out of hibernation and you start to move again, then we'll reverse that process. And, certainly you weren't planning on becoming a grizzly bear, but, you look at some of those pictures. I look at some of the pictures of me. It's like, damn, dude, you were becoming a grizzly bear. And now here you go, you've changed back. And so people don't have confidence in their body's innate intelligence. They don't even understand it. You and I talk about it every day when we enlighten people through our educational process to work with the body. Talk to us about having confidence in that, teaching people to have confidence in that, and what kept you going at the times when it was challenging.
First and foremost, I do teach it to my patients, and I explain to them, chiropractic principle number 6, it takes time. It takes time to lose weight. It takes time for my body to reorganize its metabolism. It takes time for me to shrink from a 44 to a 36 waist. I had all the time in the world to do this. And I'm very fortunate that it was relatively consistent for me. That was a baseline. When I tell patients and I have my people come in, I try to educate them. There are always choices to do. We are so, it's almost expectant at a certain age, a badge of honor, that we're at a certain age, these are the medications we're supposed to be on. I'll never forget, my mom went in for an examination, a colonoscopy, and they asked her a bunch of questions. And one of them they repeated about 5 times, said, Mrs. Adler, what kind of medication you take? She goes, none. She goes, you take nothing? No. Mrs. Adler, do you take medication for memory loss? And my mom just went ballistic. And she said, young lady, I've been doing selenium, vitamin E, CoQ10, vitamin D, you name it. I've been doing it before you were born. And she would, and they couldn't believe this 87-year-old woman, or 86 at the time, doesn't take medication. And it really is an oddity. I talked to another person interested in finding out what I did, only to find out they were on 11 prescriptive medications.
Yeah, which is, by the way, and I think what you just said is, like a badge of honor. And I agree with you. It is not a badge of honor. If you're carrying around the fact that you're on so many medications as a badge of honor, you need to seriously reevaluate your psychological state. Because all you're saying to people is that you're sick and you're not willing to change, and you should be willing to change, because otherwise you're going to end up perpetual suffering and becoming a burden to the people that you love. And I remember I had a doctor come and do an evaluation on me, David. This was going back 32 years ago. Doctor came to my office because I wanted a life insurance policy. And at the time, this is when, actually it's probably 35 years ago. And he came into my chiropractic office, which at the time, he just had his nose in the air at me, quite honestly. He was stuck up, looking down on me, spitting at me basically, and he left, and he wasn't happy that he had to be there. And then, interesting enough, about 2.5 years ago, I had to redo a life insurance policy, and guess who the doctor was that came back to reevaluate me? Same guy, 30 years later. But this time, when he asked me, what medications are you on? And I gave the same answers as your mom, and he asked me 100 different ways. And finally, he slammed his clipboard on the counter and said, you know what? Do you know how many people that I meet that are not on any medications and that have your blood pressure, et cetera? And I said, I don't know, 50%. You know what his answer was?
Wow.
0.
Yep.
0.
Yep.
And he said, we're doing something wrong. You guys are doing something right. So how does it make you feel to know that, especially as you empower your people, that we're on the side of truth?
Well, it comes down to, we have to understand and this, the healthcare system is not a healthcare system. We have a disease care system, and they are really good at saving lives in an emergent situation. I don't question that. They're the experts, period. But as far as healthcare and as far as wellness care, the paradigm's wrong. And as long as I think that we can do something from the outside in, this whole thing with COVID talks about the virus. We can almost write a song about it, but the reality is, let's talk about the host and what things are available. My whole family had coronavirus. It was not a fun ride, but we're all here. And yes, there unfortunately are people that have lost their lives. But the question needs to be switched around a little bit. It's like, instead of saying the virus is so bad, why did those people have their demise? What was with them? There's an old saying, good knees don't hurt, good teeth don't hurt. It's a great question, because the reality is, why is something doing something? So I always try to dig for the why in my office. And I always try to get the patient to go down that path of, why is that bothering you? And then we talk about, the next other pandemic we have every day is the cell phones, with their heads humped forward and their bodies distorted. And these nerves are vital to the heart and lungs. I mean, we got to stop and look at this beautiful, beautiful system of the nervous system, the spine, that every one of us has from the moment of conception. And it's housing the most important system, yet we just abuse it. We have our teeth whitened, we floss, we brush. But if we had our spine on the outside, we'd buff it, we'd clean it up, we'd put a new wax coating or whatever we would do, but it wouldn't look like it did if we look at x-rays like we look at every single day.
Yeah, and what's important, I think, another piece of it, because you talked about COVID and you talked about people that are dying and people that get sick and people that are healing. And it's interesting. We, as you know, we put out a ebook that we're giving away for free. I think you're giving it away on your site for free to your patients, called Becoming a Least Vulnerable Person. And there is one of the pieces of that Becoming a Least Vulnerable Person is it looks at obesity and COVID and the relationship between deaths related to obesity and COVID, according to the Obesity Foundation of somewhere. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but you could look it up in the ebook. And what they found was, at the time when this study was done, out of the 2.5 million deaths from quote unquote COVID, 2.2 million of them were obese. And when it came down to it, the CDC saying that actually only 6% of those deaths were actually just from COVID. The rest were related to comorbidities. So what do you tell people that? Because we're at a crossroads here. I think never before, like, you've been in practice a long time, I've been in practice a long time. We're at a crossroads that people need to learn how to think differently about it. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I always, that's exactly right. I mean, we've lost the ability to critically think. We are just looking we're here because we stopped asking questions. We stopped challenging and saying, but why? But why? Why is that? Why do I have to be on that? What are the side effects? Is there anything else I can do? When I left my doctor's office in January, he said, I know you don't want to talk about medication. I said, you're right. And he said, but if you cannot not treat diabetes. I said, I'm aware of that 100%. He said, well, will you be open to having the conversation when we do a follow-up? I said, of course I'll have the conversation. I said, but there really won't be a need to. In that moment, you asked me, when was the moment? That was the moment, because I'm like, this is it. This is everything, not only physically who I am, but what I stand for. And that's when it all started. So going back, it made the change. The body did, the body did what it was designed to do. So I teach them there's a process. You have choices. And what do you do to maximize those choices? And then let them choose. But we live in a society, and we talk about in the least vulnerable, we talk about, you mentioned and you wrote about polypharma. I mean, 10, 8, 7 meds. It's scary. Again, time and place, do your job. But for every little ache and pain, we're jumping towards something without finding out the why. I teach patients, I say it all the time, you're in pain, I got it. But you have two choices if your check engine light comes on. Find out why it's going on and fix the cause, or just take tape and cover it up. Eventually,
yeah, and that's an analogy that never gets old, by the way. I mean, that really...
It makes sense to people. They get it very simply. So you have a choice. So some people, they're in agony. Okay, do the medication, whatever. And then they start getting adjusted. I've had patients who say, doc, I don't know what's going on, but ever since you've been adjusting, I've needed less medication. They actually lowered it. I said, yeah, because your body is starting to do what it's designed to do. And then unfortunately, some people we're humans. We slip back into old patterns. The true crux of what I do in my office, I tell patients straight up, chiropractic care is not a treatment of ills. It is a lifestyle, and it should be part of a lifestyle, whether it be eating or exercising or whatever you're doing, and regular. Just like we've been taught about flossing and brushing a certain way, let's have the conversation about spinal hygiene. But that's who talks about that? Why is that so important? It's the spine. I read reports from physicians and I see them come in. My favorite line that, and I say favorite as a joke, it's not a favorite line, but they say age appropriate degeneration. I'm like, what does that mean? We're at a certain age, we're supposed to have a certain amount of decay and decrepitness to our bodies. If you buy into it, you will. If you take action, you have choices. And that's what I want to teach my patients. You have the choice. You don't give up the power, and you understand what you can do. And you know what? If you still need to do something, you've made it less traumatic by maybe it's one medication or maybe it's none, but you want to minimize. In medicine, they have what's called the minimal effective dose, right? The least amount of medication you have to take. That's gone. It just happens. Here, take it. And they don't ask. How many times have we heard stories of people move from the north to Florida to retire, and they start over with a new doctor and they drop off 12 out of their 17 medications and their health improves dramatically.
Yeah.
We can't keep this level up and expect to have a good outcome. More importantly, we can't have some of the side effects of these medications that we will learn about one day, and realizing they participated in creating massive neurodegenerative disease. And these people are living longer, but certainly not better. And that's scary. One of the most devastating things I've ever seen was going and getting a tour of a memory impaired facility. And I don't have an answer, but just being there was very sad to me.
Well, I think there's a lot of answers that we have, quite honestly. I mean, because people are in there, certainly a handful of them are in there because they're quote unquote old. But the majority, when you look at the histories, how many medications, just recently, somebody close to me passed away, and the hospice nurse came in, and the first thing she did is she picked up all the medications, put them in a shoebox, and she walked out, and she was furious. You could see how furious she was, because she's like, this is, and I don't know if she used the word criminal, but it was close to the word criminal. How many prescriptions this person was on. And we're seeing it more and more. And none of these medications were tested for long-term use, and none of them were tested for the interactions with each other. So that's just another piece of it. I love the conversation. We're having it more and more, Dr. David, because people are waking up. This whole quote unquote pandemic ridiculousness is what I call it. That's gone on in this world today is misinformation. And so much of the conversation has not been about what it really should be about, which is taking care of the vulnerable people by teaching them how to be less vulnerable, making good lifestyle choices. And listen, you didn't treat your diabetes. Your diabetes went away not because you treated it because you changed your life. And so many of the diseases that are taking people's lives, killing people, changing their lives for the worse are not genetic conditions, even though it's being blamed on genes like we talked about, but they are lifestyle conditions. So I got to tell you, I'm so honored and proud, number one, of our long-term relationship and friendship, the roots that we have with Dr. Landi. Your sister, Brenda, has become a great friend of mine and my wife, Lisa's, and we're helping so many people through the chiropractic care you're providing and the 100-year lifestyle choices that we're teaching people how to make. You said you followed a program. What program did you follow? I think there's a lot of different programs out there. We followed Nutrigen. You followed one that you feel strongly about. What is it? Talk about it a little bit.
It is a 5-in-1 meal replacement. And so behind it is a structure of learning how to re-eat certain portion control. For me, my home run was the every 2.5 hour eating. I wake up at a certain time during the day. When I wake up, I get water in my system right away, get my pipes primed, if you will. And then I have a fueling, a source of food. And then from that moment on, every 2.5 hours. And I was doing a 5-in-1, and I moved now to a transition to a 4-in-2. It made it easy. There are different plans out there. And so what I tell people is just get in touch with me, because to tell you a name, there's, internet's full of stuff that's misinformation. And so there's a lot of programs. I found this one to be great because it is designed to teach you through not only the products that they give and sell and you use, but you get individual coaching, a private Facebook page. You get tremendous amount of support. And I'm really proud of it and really happy with the program itself.
Well, you look great, man. I'm telling you right now. And I know your patients got to be inspired. You've always been a great chiropractor, a great doctor. And certainly now you are more followable because you have led yourself. We always tell people, we teach a lot of leadership around the country, companies, chiropractors, doctors. all kinds of people. And we have the leadership ladder, which is personal leadership, professional leadership, community, and global. And you got to lead yourself first. And you're doing an amazing job. And I know your patients are inspired by you. So closing thoughts, my friend, go see, by the way, Dr. David Adler, our 100-Year Lifestyle affiliate chiropractor, Roswell, Georgia, and visit our affiliates all over the country who are really taking a stand in their community. So closing thoughts, David. Appreciate you being here and taking the time.
First, thank you, Eric, for the opportunity. I appreciate the compliments. It's 31 years since past March is when I graduated. I had a practice in Manhattan. I've been down here in Georgia for 20-something years, 26, 27 years, something like that. And I will tell you, not only do I love what I do like it's the first day, as you know, I just finished renovating the office and painting and all that. I feel like I just graduated. And now that I am not carrying another small person around me, the energy is through the roof. And yes, it gives me an opportunity to have more conversations. And most importantly, forget about lead by example, but inspire people to step into their own and take action on their own and know that through me, they too can do it. And I've seen it with patients or clients, if you will, I became a coach and I've been inspiring them and helping them, but it's just so much fun. I have another client of mine who's taken off 15 pounds in a short period of time, cut her medication, both hypertension and diabetes medication down. You can't ask for more than that. And again, there's a time and place. I get it. I can live with that. But to just put them on and that's what your fate is for the rest of your life, problematic.
Wow. So much that you have said, that we have said, and so proud again to have you on our team and in our family. So listen, for those of you that are waiting for a crisis, come on now, make today the day that you make a choice, make a quality of life decision. Don't look back, make the changes that you know you need to make and start living your ideal 100-year lifestyle right now. So listen, love and appreciate you, Dr. David. Thank you all for listening. Share this with your family and friends. Follow all our pages. Bring some people along for the ride, because nobody wants to get to 100 or even 80 or 90 for that matter, crippled, broke, or alone, or overweight, right?
For sure.
All right, man. So, all right, everybody, until next time, Dr. Eric Plasker with Dr. David Adler, signing out. Thank you so much for joining us on the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have topics that you want us to cover, people you want us to interview, maybe you have some stories that you want to share, stories of yourself, loved ones, people in your life, we would love to hear from you and share your story. Please email us at my100@100yearlifestyle.com. And remember, nobody wants to get to 100 or even 50, 60, or 70 for that matter, crippled, broke, and alone. So please share the 100-Year Lifestyle, all of our podcasts, social media pages, website, with your family, friends, and coworkers so they can take this journey with you. And until next time, adjust your lifestyle. Live your best life today and every day on the road to a sensational century. Dr. Plasker, signing off.